Wonder Diamonds, South India's largest lab-grown diamond brand, stores at Chennai, Coimbatore, Bangalore and Hyderabad.
Hello Abhishek Bachchan, welcome to Galattaplus.
Thank you.
Just the usual thing, a few questions about nepotism, maybe Bollywood
Yeah, we've never
not
heard that
doing
before.
well.
Yeah,
the
let's
usual
do
stuff.
it, let's do it.
Yeah, no, actually no. I just wanted to tell you that, in 2008, there came a time when I was accused of being on your payroll. Can you guess what that was for?
On my payroll in 2008, vis-a-vis my films, that's why they were... Oh, really?
For a review.
2008, my first release was, I think... First release was... Wait, 2007 was Guru, then Jhoom Barabar Jhoom.
You actually remember the sequence of all your releases?
Yeah, I write them down.
Okay.
Guru was in January, Jhoom was later in the year. Then came Laga Chundri Mein Daag. In 2008, I know Dostana released in November, and Drona came out on the 1st of October.
That's basically
Drona, yeah?
Yeah. So I kind of sort of like the film. And I
Really?
think,
Oh,
yeah,
thank you.
Maybe it's me and you and Goldie Bill are the only three people who actually kind of.
You know, I'm going to tell him because we're trying to put together this whole group of people who enjoyed the film.
So,
and it's really weird, you know, because in the last month to 6 weeks, with a lot of these big VFX films coming out, there's so much love going towards Drona right now.
Is there?
Yeah.
So the reason I was asked is like the world. I didn't know this back then, but the world was already beginning to split into either the film is his greatest film on earth, or it's the worst piece of crap. There's no middle ground where you say, this film could have been a little better, but it's still quite nice.
Sure.
That wasn't, the world was already going into that thing, and I didn't realize it then, but everyone was like,
so you're in an elite club, by the way, I want to tell you. There's Goldie, there's myself, there's Shah Rukh, and there's you.
Oh, wow.
I remember Shah Rukh came to the premiere and he wrote me the sweetest letter after that. That very night, he went home and wrote me a letter about how much he enjoyed the film and how, because he loves VFX and what he was at that point obviously conceptualizing Ravan, I think. So he was so into it. He's like, we need to start pushing the boundaries and you'll have created step. He wrote a beautiful letter. So wow, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's the way film should be. When I was in school and we were being taught in our English A-levels how to critique, it wasn't for film, but it was obviously for, any prose or whatever. The way I imbibed or learned how to critique, and my personal view was that any piece of art, if we may presumably call it that, it needs to instigate or elicit a very extreme reaction from you. And I feel if it doesn't, then we're not really doing what we need to be doing.
Oh, are you saying you're actually for this, either this side or that side?
Yeah, if you either see, there was, when I was much younger, there was an English film which I used to love called Highlander.
Yeah.
All right? And after seeing that film, I actually for a long time thought I was immortal. And in that, there's a very famous dialogue. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Okay.
And I think that's how any professional who truly is invested in what they're doing and loves what they're doing is going to have that attitude. We always get told these wonderful things about, when you leave, don't let people say, why not? Let them say, why. No person who's really invested in their profession, be it you as a journalist or me as an actor or a professional sportsman or whatever, I think somewhere what drives you is that you feel you still have one more in you. You have one more story to tell. You have one more, film to critique or whatever. And until you don't get it horribly wrong and you realize, okay, I can't do anymore. That's when
it stops.
Yeah, and that's when you hang up your boots. So I feel a film should kind of have that kind of a reaction. You either love it or you hate it. There's no middle path. If there's middle path, I don't think the filmmakers have chosen a side.
Okay.
Of telling a story. And I don't mean this politically at all. I'm just saying, if I'm telling a story, you either jump in both feet into the deep end and go for it.
Right.
You can't skirt it. You know what I'm saying? So I've always believed that films should have that extreme reaction. And a lot of that is what actually kept me going through an initial phase in my career when my films weren't doing very well. One of the things that kept me going, apart from a certain maybe stubbornness to just prove what I wanted to do and just keep doing what I wanted to do and remaining positive, was, okay, it's getting a reaction.
Right.
We see so many films that release and people don't even know they released.
They don't care. Yeah.
That I think, for an actor or for any creative person, I think, is the worst thing possible.
So you're saying, watch my film and hate me, but don't ignore it.
No, I'm not saying watch my film and hate me. I'm saying watch my film and love it. But if you have an extreme reaction, as long as I've got a reaction, I'm okay with that. Okay. Indifference is something that I cannot tolerate.
Don't ignore.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between the Abhishek that was just entering the industry with Refugee versus this Abhishek that I'm facing right now, some 20, 22 years later, both professionally and personally?
I think that obviously 22 years of experience have taught you a lot. From a craft perspective, I think I'm better prepared. I don't think you can truly ever be in control of your craft, but I think you can be a bit more comfortable trying to control it.
Right.
I've always said this publicly. I think I was severely underprepared when I became an actor. In retrospect, I feel I could have done so much more, and I should have done so much more. And I think that's where it is. You learn that with time and age, but I'm really I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing right now. I used to always love it, but there was always that a bit of trepidation before going on set or before giving a take of, oh my God, you know, the peripheral things that bother you. Stupid things like, am I going to be able to remember my dialogue? Is my continuity correct? You know, now it's about, okay, you're enjoying riding that wave. I tell, you know, our friend Anu that very often. The fun of I think, spending time in front of the camera and gaining an experience is once you get onto that wave, you get to surf it, you know, instead of just trying to survive. You get to enjoy it. And I think I'm enjoying myself now. I'm enjoying telling the stories. I'm enjoying jumping into the character to what I think is the best possible that I can do.
Right.
And having fun with it. So there's a bit more calm, I think,
right.
in my approach.
Right.
And I think that's what would be different.
While I was looking up, you know, what I wrote about Sarkar Raj and all those films of yours around that period, again, 2008, I come across this Ram Gopal Verma interview where he says that, you know, as a filmmaker, you can never be pure after a while. He says that, you know, after a while, you start forgetting the original idea that you started out with, and then your film kind of begins to morph into something else. Is there something like that for an actor where at the beginning of, let's say, Breathe, you have this like, okay, this is how I'm going to play it, this is my thing, this is my graph, these are the tics and mannerisms that I'm going to use, but then that purity slowly kind of goes away?
It's prevalent, I think, in every creative person's journey. You know, in about 2016, I took a bit of a sabbatical.
Right.
For various reasons. One of them being that you just felt somewhere empty, you know, and you question yourself after doing, say, for example, an emotional scene. Was that shot genuine, or is it just a pre-programmed button that I can press and say, okay, I know how to be upset? And part of you wants it to be as visceral to the audience as what you're feeling. In order for that, I believe it has to be very, very genuine at that point of time. That is almost impossible to achieve, because if you just see the way we make our films, there's nothing that is aiding you do that.
Right. What do you mean the way we make our films?
A film set is functioning chaos.
Yeah, right.
Right. There are multiple angles, there are multiple takes, there are multiple shots for one emotion, for example, as opposed to, say, in theater, where once I start performing, you're in that groove and you can ride it. In this, every 20, 30 seconds, there's cut, lighting change, there's hustle, bustle. So your concentration level has to be a lot more. So it's almost impossible to stay completely true to that moment. But you try. There's some very accomplished actors who manage to do that, and I'm very envious of that. So after a while, it just kind of becomes a pre-programmed kind of an emotion. There are times when you have to do something which you really need to dig deep into your, you know, soul to pull out something, and you realize, hey, I'm faking it, you know, which is fine. I mean, acting essentially is faking it to a certain degree. And you just feel that it's not happening. So it happens to everybody. The fear of that is a lot more when you're doing a follow-up to a character or a sequel, as we call it. I've done several of them. I first realized this on a film which people might not attribute something to, oh, you have to concentrate on the performance. It was a movie called Dhoom.
Yeah.
It was the first sequel that I did.
What do you mean it's a movie called Dhoom, like you're introducing it to the world?
I mean,
Yeah.
I can't be presumptuous enough to think that everybody's seen it.
Everybody has seen
well,
it.
Okay, great.
Okay,
So when I did the sequel to Dhoom, the idea was, okay, how do we take Jay Dikshit and just amplify him a bit? We didn't want to change because he's the same guy. Jay Dikshit, I've always said, although Dhoom is always known about the stunts and the bikes and the body, but Jay Dikshit is not the kind of guy who's going to take his shirt off and walk in high speed. That's not his characterization. And I fought tooth and nail to stay true to that. But how do you adapt him slightly? How do you still keep him interesting to watch? Because after a while, people will start predicting what he's going to do. So you play with a few of those. So that keeps it a bit alive. But like, say, for example, in Breathe, I think the pandemic served as a great service to us because one, Mayank got a whole year of being up in the mountains, locked away,
And that's a director.
writing. Mayank, our director. And the other thing is it kind of gave us a break of almost 2 years. So it kind of felt fresh again because when I finished the first season of Breathe, I was done. I was exhausted. It was very, very demanding. And he's a very, very demanding director and he doesn't let you off the hook easily. And the material was all there. So, I mean, it was very complex for me. So I kind of appreciated those 2 years that we had in between.
Right.
But once you come back to it, the difference is in season 1, you're discovering Avinash and Jay. In season 2, you know them. So what Mayank and I, we sat down and we decided, how do we keep him similar but show a certain evolution in him? In season 1, if you see my split personality of Jay, there's certain characteristics and mannerisms that I put into him, which Mayank and I spent months working on. First was he has a limp, which is a psychological limp, because Jay is born out of a trauma that Avinash faced as a child. And when he has that accident where he loses his family, he cuts his leg and he has that limp. So we said, okay, let's keep this limp. That's where the limp came from. That's where his name Jay comes from, because that's the first thing he sees when he comes out of the bus. He has a twitch in the thumb, and that twitch is from the last time he tried to keep holding on to his mother while he was being dragged out of the wreckage. His mask is made up of his mother's chunni. He doesn't blink, and which is actually immensely tough to do. But if you see season 1, he doesn't blink. And when Mayank said, why would we do that? I said, because he doesn't trust people, so he doesn't want to blink.
Right.
So and it looks a bit eerie also when somebody's just looking at you. And in season 2, we incorporated the one-off blink, because now Jay is more comfortable in his skin.
Yes.
The twitch isn't as prominent. It's there, but it's not as prominent. His body language, Jay was always a bit hunched over, because, if you see kids, when they sit, they all, a lot of them will sit like this. It's a very adult thing to sit like this. So, Jay had that, but in this season, Jay sits up a bit more because he's gaining in confidence. He's becoming more comfortable. In season 1, as the season progresses, people didn't really notice, but, I love throwing in these small characteristics into a character. Avinash, when he's stressed, he starts, you see him doing a lot of this. And
right.
It was all a preamble and a build-up to, oh, he's developing a twitch as well.
Right.
Because when I did my research on people with this kind of disorder, after a point of time, your actual personality and your split personality, and if you have multiple of them, they all over time start merging.
Yeah.
So there is this possibility that, wait, where does Avinash end and where does Jay start and vice versa? And if they live with each other long enough, is there like a confluence of sorts?
Right.
So we tried to, put in all these things very subtly. We never really spoke about it because, the marketing team said, oh, we must put this out. I said, no, let's see if people pick up on it. It could be interesting. And amazingly, a lot of people started picking up on it. Jay keeps humming a lodi that his mother used to sing to him to calm him down. And he only says that when he wants to be in control of a situation. So these are all these things that you put in. Now, in season 2, we tried to just change it slightly. So I think that's what keeps it interesting. I think if you have to just do the same thing over and over again, it's going to become programmed and eventually the audience is going to get jaded by it. So if you can try and just tweak it a little bit, I think that's what keeps you invested as a performer. and hopefully the audience as well.
To this, I have a counter question. Now, there are actors, let's take Hollywood as an example. There are actors like Cary Grant, who were basically Cary Grant in every movie.
Yes.
Because people went for the Cary Grant persona.
Yeah.
That was what they wanted to see. They did not want him to do anything else. They wanted him to be Cary Grant. So whether he's in a Hitchcock movie or whether he's in any other thing, he's Cary Grant. But when you take Spencer Tracy or anybody else, they are molding themselves subtly through each kind of film. So don't you think there are two ways to kind of at least acting stardom or whatever stardom that you kind of...
There are.
Right, yeah. So and, you're saying you're rejecting the other way completely?
No, I'm not. I think firstly, when we discuss our work, we tend to categorize because that's just human nature.
To put you in a box.
Yeah. And the box that you're not in, somehow the other just doesn't seem as justified or as exalted. And I'm very against that. In our industry especially, because our performance style has got, the spectrum of Indian movies, the performance for that is so varied.
Right.
Which I don't think I can say in all fairness that, say, the West has, if we're talking about just Hollywood. You have your commercial massy cinema and the performance for that. And please do not be mistaken, there is a very elite skill set that is required to pull that off.
Of course.
And then you have the other end of it, which is the more realistic kind of performance, which also requires an elite skill set. But a lot of the time, we look down upon the commercial acting. It's not easy. I dare anybody, since we're, on Galatta, I dare anybody to do what Rajni Uncle does.
Yeah.
And prove it. Not possible. That's why there's only one Rajnikant.
Yeah.
That's why there's only one Mr. Kamal Hassan, because of what Kamal Uncle does. And Kamal Uncle, I think, managed to straddle both the worlds.
Right.
If you see him in the work, like if you see him in his earlier works, like Sinayagan or whatever, they're possibly the greatest performances of all time. But he's also managed to give that heroism to his work. Since, up here as well, I think, not just because he's my father, but
of course your father.
And I think he managed to do that greatly. I think a lot of my colleagues do it brilliantly. You take Shah Rukh, Salman, Amir, Hrithik, all of them. They've all managed. Ajay, Akshay. It's not easy. I keep telling people that, for example, do what Raj does. We all consider good acting when, everybody's looking very downtrodden and everything. You'd go, dance in Alaska on a on an iceberg in -30 in a chiffon sari. You pull that off and convince me you can do that. Okay, I'll be impressed with you. You do a Nimbuda like Aishwarya did, or you do Devdas. Pull it off with that kind of elan and grace, like Madhuri ji and Aishwarya did in the song in Devdas, and convince me of it. Try and do it. It's not easy. It's very, very difficult, and we tend to look down upon that. So there are two different schools. It depends what you want. There's hard work in both. When I first came in 2000, the whole environment was about the star act.
Yeah.
Right? I think in the last decade, that has started shifting a lot more. I got the opportunity, thanks to, money, very early in my career, to explore another side where it wasn't about playing the star. It was about playing the character. Money taught me that. He introduced me to that. Weirdly, so did somebody like Karan, who's not usually given that due. But when I did a movie called Kabhi Alvida Na Kehna, I was introduced to playing a character rather than just playing a star.
Right.
And I think since 2010 onwards, the kind of cinema, I think our cinema evolved, our audience's tastes evolved. And then obviously, I think the gauntlet was really thrown down once the streaming sites came in, because suddenly at the push of a button, you could access talent from around the world.
Right.
So there was an equality about it. In the case of say, Mumbai, in the theatre days, there are specific theatres that showed English films, and they're mostly in South Mumbai. Sterling, Eros, for example, Regal.
Regal, yeah.
And so there was a differentiation. Today, it's all at the push of a button. You can be watching Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and breathe into the shadows within 10 seconds of each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's the brilliance that streaming platforms brought. But with that, what happens is they also help you change in your taste, because suddenly you're viewing what the world is viewing. I find it so interesting that in most of the streaming sites, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've heard of the most popular shows, I don't remember, of the 3 or 4 most popular shows that you hear a lot about, I've not heard of one English show, you know? I found it amazing when the people at Amazon told me that Family Man was one of Amazon Prime Video's most watched shows in the world. I was, when we dropped season 1 of Breathe, it was during the pandemic, so obviously people were consuming the product more. I mean, it was one of their top 4 shows in the world. I find that amazing.
Yeah.
But with that comes a certain different style. You can't, at that point, expect a Westerner who comes from a different culture and a different upbringing to understand commercial Hindi Masi cinema. They don't get it. They love the pomp and pageantry and the song and dance, but they don't,
They don't get the heart of it.
Yeah. When you adapt that style a bit, you're forcing your initial audience to also view it, and you find that balance. So I think in Breathe, we try to find that balance. So in season 1, we speak English. Jay only speaks Hindi, because he never learned English. But if you see Avinash, he speaks English. That was to try and make it more accessible to a non-Hindi speaking audience. And I think that's what today's youth is growing up on.
Right.
So that is their appetite, and that is what they're consuming in terms of cinema.
Yeah.
So their tastes have changed. So now we as actors get to do that. So you have that distinction. Do we want to play the star? Do you want to play, just be true to the character? And you're spoiled for choice.
Right.
I'd love to go back to doing films now where I get to do that, because I haven't done that in about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, you haven't done like a Dhoom 4 or 5 or whatever.
and I'm missing that, you know. I want to do that as well. I love that. The song and the dance and the action and the romance. I love that. That's what I grew up on. I grew up on Manmohan Desai and Prakash Mehra and Ramesh Sippy and Yash Chopra. So
you grew up in your dad's films,
So you know, you want to do that as well. But I'm enjoying this phase, and that's why we have that distinction today. And but like I said, Cary Grant is Cary Grant. I mean, we're still talking about him, right?
Yeah.
So obviously they did something right.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. It's
not
very
easy,
difficult, because there comes a time where you've got a particular scenario, and how do you put the star into that scenario?
Right.
You know, so it's a constant challenge.
Is there a favorite Abhishek Bachchan performance?
Of my own?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You don't ever evaluate yourself?
I do. I watch my films every week. I make notes. I have got notebooks filled with. What I find amazing is whenever you revisit your work, and I'm not doing this out of vanity. I do it on educational purposes, and I really feel all actors, if you are lucky enough and blessed enough to have managed to do a lot of work over time, to revisit your work, because every time you revisit it, you should find a new way to perform it. Because if you do, then, okay, somewhere you're growing.
Okay.
If you sit back and say, oh, I nailed it, you're done.
I didn't have this question, but now that you're saying you revisit your films, one of my favorite performances of yours, early performances of yours, is in Naach.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think it's a film that was fairly ahead of its time in terms of the emotion that Ram Gopal Verma put into it, and it was very true to what it was doing.
Yes.
It was a very fountainhead kind of movie.
Yes, I think that was his greatest inspiration.
Yeah. So
and he was trying to say something about himself in that film.
So what do you think of that performance?
Well, Naach was, in a sense, where Ramu gave me the confidence to perform the way I grew up being trained to perform.
Okay.
Which was more internal, was not serving it up as much.
Right.
And Naach, we shot in 2003 and it released in 2004 on Diwali, I remember. And it was the first time where there was a scene which comes in the second half when Avi has become an actor, and he's lying on his bed having a glass of whiskey with ice, and he's just watching a television channel where, you know, Antara's character is there with Ritesh, and he's seething because he doesn't like to see her with someone else. And I remember I was just lying there and I said, Ramu, can I just have my glass here and let me just play with the ice? So, you know, in your sound, you'll just get that clanging. Action, I just did that. And Ramu, until he's not convinced, won't say cut. So you're used to, and although that was my first film with Ramu, I knew that, okay, he's not going to say cut until he feels I'm not able to hold the shot. It went on quite extensively. And when it finished, I said, I think it's a bit indulgent. And I was speaking from maybe an external perspective, because from the performance I did what I had to do. I said, maybe it's getting a bit, because see, there again, you're trained to think of it as a whole. You're not just about the character. And he said something to me which was amazing. He said, who are you? I said, I'm your actor. He said, who am I? I said, you're my director. He said, good. You do your job. Let me do mine. I'll tell you when it's in. Don't worry about all that. Throw all this out of your head. You just do what I ask you to do. And that was the first time he gave me confidence to say, hey, okay, here's somebody who's allowing me the room to just feel exactly how I want to feel at the pace that I want to feel it at. There isn't a meter. Indian cinema has a meter. You can't be too indulgent after a point of time. And the opposite happened shockingly with money. There's this scene, we did a movie called Guru, and there's this scene where I have this AGM which becomes a bit rough. And we shot this very interesting scene in a car between Aishwarya and me, which was hilarious because it was inside and there was rain outside and we were running against time. So Rajiv, who was shooting the film, put on a fisheye lens because he wanted that slightly proportion to be out because, to reflect his mental state. And he used to literally sit on my lap and shoot Aishwarya's close-up and then sit on Ash's lap and shoot my close-up. And from there, I look at her and I'm just blown because it's the first time that my people have gone against me. And she says, I'll take you somewhere. And she takes him back to Paidhuni to their first house. Right. And Mani was trying to say at that point that when in doubt, go back to basics. This is where you started from. Look what all you've achieved. Don't beat yourself up so much. And it's the first time he's been back to the house in several years. So he said, just walk in, just look around. There was a swing. We'll sit on the swing. And that's when he has his stroke. So I still remember we were shooting and we shot it in, it was a huge set that we had in Chennai, in an abandoned mill over there. Binny Mills, as you might know. And I walked in and I was lost in the moment and I was thinking, and Mani said, okay, cut that. It's too long. I said, no, but, he said, no, but the bulk of the scene is on the swing. So don't spend too much time in the approach. Spend your time there. On the swing, you do whatever you. So it was the complete opposite. But you also realize that you have to find that balance.
The tuning also.
Yeah, and that's why they're the directors.
Yeah.
Because as an actor, I can just carry on and on and on, as I am in this interview. You have to sit down and say, okay, no, but let's do this.
Yeah.
So I think with Naach, what happened is he kind of gave me the confidence that, okay, this style is acceptable. And it empowers you to try different things then. I did it at a point in my career where, I didn't have much work. And obviously which actor would not want to work with Ram Gopal Varma? Right. And he really empowered me a lot. So it's a film that I still hold very close to my heart.
Thank you.
But yeah, thank you for watching it.
Yeah, I thought, again, that was a club of one or something like that. So
no, there are quite a few people. A lot of my, I went to boarding school in Europe. And most of my drama teachers were foreign. So they regularly asked for my films. And Naach is on everyone's top 3.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you about 2 performances. Mm-hmm. One that you're remaking of Parthiban's film, which is Oththaseruppu.
Yeah.
And
we're done
with
that.
Called Triple S something.
Yeah, Triple S7. We're done with it. We finished shooting it last August.
Right. So what made you say, I need to do this movie? Because it doesn't exactly scream commercial success for one reason. And I don't know. So that's part of the question. Is it like, when you choose a role that you think you want to do, you want to get into that role, is there some barometer inside you that's also thinking, yes, I want to do this role and I want to try this out, but is there an audience for this? Is that happening as well?
Always.
Okay.
Always.
So something told you that this is going
to... Well, I think, like we discussed earlier about, how audiences' tastes are changing. I think with the advent of the digital streaming sites, or what we call OTT over here, you have an audience for everything. It has to be made correctly. I met Parthiban sir actually on Money set, and he said, look, I made this movie, I want you to see it. And for me, I did it as a challenge. I've never done a solo actor film. And the challenge for me was because my foundation is in commercial mainstream Indian cinema, there's certain things that just get thrown out of the window. So I have to perform my dialogue and I have to perform my reaction to the off-camera dialogue because I don't have a cutaway. So for me, it was a mixture of an exercise, a huge, huge challenge, and I really liked the script. And although my Tamil is very, very weak. I mean, I just knew a few words, but I could pick up the kind of gist, and I didn't want to read the subtitles because one thing I know with Tamil is subtitles never do it justice. And we had several discussions, and then we just went in, and I had a window of opportunity of just a month. And he said, I just need 20 days. And we just went into a studio in Chennai and shot it and came back. And we're almost done. Hopefully, we'll be putting it out very, very soon.
Right.
So it was a challenge. I knew there's an audience for it. It's not a magnum opus. It's not a 500 crore budgeted film. It's a very small, intimate film, which we will release intimately so that the audience that would want to see it has the opportunity to see it.
Right. So that's one kind of comparison you're putting yourself into, because people are going to say, this guy did it this way, let's see how Abhishek, and there's always going to be a bit of that.
Of course.
Now, another kind of challenge which comes in comparison happens is like Bobbiswas, where you're taking a role that somebody else played, and you're not remaking that movie, but you're actually extending that character and kind of having a different kind of a thing. Again, do you just see how Abhishek would do it, or do you also want to see what...
So that's slightly different. Embarrassingly, I had not seen Kahani.
You've not seen Kahani?
I have now.
You see your own movies every week?
Yeah,
and you don't
I had
see
not
Kahani?
seen Kahani.
Okay.
Which is a touch-in between Sujoy and me. And when he said, oh, there's this thing, and there was a small character that he played, I said, okay. I had no idea of the popularity of Bob until we announced the film, and we announced it with the photograph of Sujoy, Shah Rukh, and myself. And I saw the internet, I'm like, oh wow, this guy, and I was like, hey, I need to pay attention to this. But I didn't want to see the film because I said, now more reason why I should not see the film, because I don't want to be influenced, by Shashwato's performance at all. Because the script of Bob was unique because he comes out of a coma. He doesn't remember anything. So he had an opportunity to completely recreate a character. But Sujoy, when he was writing it, and Dia, when we used to sit down on our readings, we purposely didn't want to let anybody know the timeline. Is this before Kahani or is it after Kahani? Hence the small Easter egg at the end when he sees Vidya's photo. And it's Vidya's younger photo. So people keep questioning that, hey, is Bobbiswas happening before Kahani or after Kahani? So the opportunity there was to recreate a character.
Right.
The only characteristics we felt were integral were his physicality. So hence the weight, the hair, the glasses. But everything else he doesn't remember. And so over there, I actually ended up seeing Kahani and Shashwata's amazing performance halfway through the lockdown.
Right.
Because we had finished, we only had about a week's shooting left when the lockdown happened. We were in Kolkata and we had to come back. And I only saw it then. And I was happy because I knew we had tried to do something a bit different to what he had done. Obviously, nobody's going to be able to recreate what he did. He was just absolutely brilliant.
But I thought you brought your own flavor to that.
That was the idea.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wish you want to do that you haven't done? Because see, like you've done your drama, you've done your comedy in films like Dostana and Bluffmaster. Is there a zone that you seek to explore? Like for instance, in Breathe, you're doing a kind of an extended character over time, right? Like which you can't do in a movie because it's just 2 hours.
I've never been very good at identifying, oh, this is what I want to do next.
A Rajamouli film or something like that.
Well, everybody would want to do a Rajamouli film.
No, is there something like that that's been ever since you were a kid, I want to do this?
I'm very keen to go back to something very massy right now.
Okay.
I'm missing the walking in high speed. I'm missing the turning in a particular way. I'm missing the songs and the dance, like I told you, and the action. weirdly, I call the last 4 years the dark phase of my career. Because if you see, a lot of my subjects were very emotionally dark. And I want to now step out of that. I want to do something lighthearted. I really want to do an out-and-out comedy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing something. I think I need to exhale a bit.
I think your last one was Happy New Year, maybe?
No, Houseful.
Houseful, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that genre, you know. And I just want to do. Yeah, I think I think I should now. I might be overstaying my welcome in this whole world.
In the zone. Now that you are 22 years wiser in this industry, would you want to put yourself in a time machine, go back, erase all public photographs of you and your dad together and all that, call yourself Abhishek Sharma and enter the industry as somebody that you still belong to your family, but nobody else knows that, enter and carve your own path? Because one of the constant refrains that in all your interviews, almost all your interviews that I've read, has been that, you know, I've done so many films and people still look at me as my dad's son. Would Abhishek Sharma be...
I'd never do that.
You'd never do that?
No.
Okay.
And I've never felt the need to do it either.
Right.
Allow me to elaborate, which you have for the last 1 hour. But, you know, for me, the greatest pride comes from the fact that I'm my parents' son.
Sure. At a personal level.
And professionally as well. I look upon my responsibility of being my parents' son very differently to how the world perceives it. And I understand why the world perceives it in a particular way. There'll be comparisons personally, professionally, and that's perfectly fine. I don't begrudge anybody that. For me, I look upon it as a responsibility of carrying forth the family's legacy. I look upon it as a responsibility of trying to make my parents proud of the work that I do. That's my approach to it. I've never looked upon it as a burden or an albatross around my neck. I've looked upon it as a huge, huge privilege and an honor. And I wake up every morning wanting to do good service to that.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. So I've never really thought about that, hey, if I was somebody else, would I want to? No. I wear my name with absolute pride. I'm very proud to be my grandparents' grandson and my parents' son, and now my daughter's father. And it's a matter of huge honor for me and something that is of paramount importance to me.
No, I don't deny that at all, Abhishek. But this thing that keeps coming in all your, in your interviews is that...
Yeah, see, that's asked to me by the journalist.
Right.
Right.
I
have no control over that.
Right.
I can merely respond to the questions that I'm asked. If after 22 years you still feel the need to bring up a comparison, fair enough. My approach is, look, you're comparing me to the best, so I'm evidently doing something right. Like I told you at the start of the interview, indifference is something that I will not tolerate.
Right.
I mean, it would destroy me.
Right.
The point is, if you still feel you need to speak about my family to me, fair enough. They're an integral part of my life, and I don't shy away from it. And it's not something that is a burden to me or shackles me. So it's never been that. And like I said, I can only respond to the questions that are asked. The question, from what I understood you asked me, was, hey, if you had the opportunity to erase from public memory that you belonged to this man do you? No, I would not. Because a lot of what I am today is because of that journey that I've been through. Yeah. I've been asked similar questions that, oh, if you could go back to the start of your career, what would you do different? You can come up with 100 answers. Yeah. The one I think which is most pertinent is I wouldn't do anything different, because it's because of the things that I did right and wrong that have made me who I am today.
Yeah, that's for everybody.
And it's a very important learning process. You have to go through that graph.
Yeah. That's why the hypothetical nature of the question, which is like, if, not the...
No,
of course, Abhishek Bachchan
I love it. I love it. It makes me so happy when people come up to me and liken me to my father or to my mother's performance or something. Yeah. I feel proud about it. I feel like, okay, I'm doing something.
Right.
There and again, you're balancing always. Indian cinema means so much more to its audience than Western cinema does. For us, it's personal. Our actors are ours. You know, Hamara Amitabh. You know, 9 बजे हर शाम को अमिताभ बच्चन कौन बनेगा करोड़पति पे आपके घर के अंदर आके आपसे बात करते हैं. You know, when Rajni uncle does laga, you're doing it for me. There might be 500 people freaking out in the theater, but oh, he's talking to me. That's the way it is. We take our cinema and our actors very personally. So with that, we don't have that distinction between their personal life and their private life. Now, actors might have to wrestle with that, but that is what our cinema is. There's an ownership over you. I don't think that happens as much in the West. With that ownership comes stuff like this.
Yeah.
So I'm part of this family. When you talk to me about my father or my mother or my wife, they're part of my family. We're part of a common discussion. So that's the way I look at it. So
Right.
I've never wanted to change that. I enjoy it.
Right. So thank you, Abhishek.
My
and
pleasure.
All
Thank
the
you.
best for Breathe, because
Thank
we're
you.
all looking to see where the mystery code leads to now.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Well, thank you.
And I hope you find your high-speed, fun.
The massy commercial
the massy
one.
commercial film.
Yeah.
With Rohit Shetty or whoever. soon. So,
fingers crossed.
Fingers
But
crossed.
thank you. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wonder Diamonds, South India's largest lab-grown diamond brand, stores at Chennai, Coimbatore, Bangalore and Hyderabad.